Hey guys, we know that Christ already came back. We know that he already fulfilled the law. We know that he finished his work. So, what is the state of the world today? And that's what I'm going to try to explain here is how we live today. And this is grace, but people don't want this type of grace. You're not hidden from God at all. Under the law it was a lot different. Under the law they were judged by their flesh and what their flesh did. If they lived wholly in the flesh, even if they had a bad heart, they would be blessed underneath the law. They would live a long life, they would have cattle and houses and lands, and they would live a long life. That's how they were blessed then. But we saw that nobody could get back to Adam and Eve's state of being holy. So Christ came. And whenever Christ came back and fulfilled everything, this changed everything. And this is why there's so much confusion in the world today, just because people don't understand. Because it shouldn't be confusion. It's not really confusion. It is the judgment of God. It's having God's judgment, is what I mean by that. Judging things correctly. Christ was the only person who could fulfill the law because he wasn't born in sex. He wasn't born in an evil act. Okay, he was robed in flesh. So he felt all evil, but since he wasn't born in the act of sex, he could not act out evil. He couldn't do anything evil. And for that, the law couldn't keep him in the grave. And he rose again. And then he fulfilled the law, overcame it, came back. And once he came back, this changed everything. And this is why in churches today, this is why no matter what you believe, you can heal, you can deliver, you can see miracles, you can do all these different things no matter what you believe. There's healing preachers who are liars. There are deliverance preachers who are liars. There are other religions. If they're praying to Muhammad, they're going to see Muhammad. They're going to. They're going to see his spirit. If they're praying about Jesus Christ coming back, they're going to see Christ coming back. But that already happened. And he's trying to show them what already happened. But mixed with their doctrine, mixed with their indoctrination, they're going to think that he's talking about a future event. Because the Spirit is open to all of us, every single one of us. We have the powers of the world to come. All of us do. And we are judged completely differently now. The blood of Jesus ran onto the dirt. And once Jesus came back, he established an everlasting kingdom. And this kingdom is forever. There's going to be wars, they're going to destroy part of the earth and all these things, but the earth is not going to be destroyed. This is an everlasting kingdom where heaven is open to people, where the temple in heaven was open at the seventh trumpet, and the dead in Christ rose. And then us that are alive and remain, whenever we die, we don't sleep and waiting for Christ. We go straight into the light, or we roam the earth and we stay out of the light, because death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. So, just like under the Old Testament, you only saw Samuel be resurrected for a minute, you know. Well, he was in the grave. David went to the grave. Everybody went to the grave. These guys were in the grave. But now it's completely different. The flesh is now hidden from the eyes of God because we're all made of the dust, and Christ's blood was a final sacrifice that ran onto the dust. And once he came back, he established this kingdom under his blood. Under his blood, he established his kingdom and gave the kingdom back to God, so that this is an everlasting kingdom. And what this kingdom is you're judged by your hearts now. This is why it doesn't matter what you do or what you don't do. It does not matter, but it matters why. Your flesh and everything that comes with it is hidden from God. He does not see how much money you make, and he doesn't see if you're poor. He doesn't care if you're rich. He doesn't care if you're poor. He doesn't care if you're healthy. He doesn't care if you're unhealthy. All the things that have to do with the flesh. He doesn't care what you eat. He doesn't care what you don't eat. But here's where we get into the tricky part for people, because they don't understand the real judgment now, because Jesus' spirit never died. So the spirit is very important. And this is where your conscience comes in. If you think that you have to live by the law, then God will show you how to live under the law, because you believe that this is something that you have to do. It's impossible to do, and you cannot be saved doing it. But since you believe that, your conscience is not allowed to sin against God, because once that happens, the best way to understand it is if you think that eating pork is a sin and you eat it anyway, even though God could care less if you eat pork, because your flesh is completely hidden from the eyes of God. If you eat it anyway, then you've just sinned against God, even though God does not care. But he sees your spirit and your conscience. So your conscience is now defiled because even though God doesn't care, you blatantly did this eating pork against God. And if you think that eating pork is a sin, God doesn't even see that. He doesn't see what you're doing in the flesh, but he sees your heart and he notices whenever something in it goes, okay, I'm going to do this anyway. And then you just sin against God. That's what he noticed. He didn't notice the flesh part, but he noticed the fact that you did something that you thought was evil. Okay, he noticed your spirit. This is why women can look beautiful, but they can be the most hideous creatures in the spirit that you've ever seen. There can be virgins who are sluts. There can be people who join a convent because they're such sluts and they're afraid of, being that way. They think that it's wrong to be that way. So now they're virgins, or they want to be a virgin to hold that over top of you. And then there are prostitutes who are born in very bad places and raised certain ways that hate it. God doesn't see the heart anymore. I mean, God doesn't see the flesh anymore. He only sees the heart. One person doesn't drink. Okay, that could be good for that person, and that could be bad for that person because they're not drinking any alcohol because of this, because of that, or because of wanting to look better than other people and be better in the flesh than other people. Well, that's bad. Another person might not drink because they want to keep their right mind and be healthy. Okay, well, that's fine. Well, one person might drink because they know that the flesh doesn't matter. So this doesn't cause them to act different from drinking or be a different person, one person might smoke, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But this is also why every religion you see does all these things. You could be a druid or a witch or a Muslim or Hindu or Christian. Any of these things you will see in the spirit. If you pray to Thor and Odin, you're going to see Thor and Odin. That's the way it is. That's who you're going to see. Okay? If you're praying about Jesus and the things of Christianity before Christ came, you're going to see the things that happened before he came. And you're also going to see how you have to act. If you think, like for example, you think that you have to be with one certain person, that God has this person planned for you, whenever God doesn't see the flesh at all, well, then he's going to show you how to be with that person because your conscience says, this is something that I must do for God. Okay? So you have to do this thing. But once you realize, or once you know that you don't, you won't be sinning against God because he doesn't care about the flesh. I hope that I'm getting this out to you good enough. It seemed like I said it better whenever I rehearsed this before I made the video. Not rehearse it, but you just sit there and you like preach to yourself for a minute and then it came out better then. But that's the state of the world today is your conscience and your spirit. Nothing is hidden from God. You cannot hide. You cannot sit here and pray and say, I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. It doesn't matter because he already knows what you're going to say. And you could hate him even though you say you love him. You could fast for the wrong reason. You could fast for the right reason. Some people celebrate holidays and they just have a good, simple heart about it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. God doesn't see the holiday, he doesn't see the tree, he doesn't see the paganism or anything, unless you're worshiping paganism, and that's why you do something like that. That could be different. You see what I'm saying? And other people don't celebrate holidays, and that's good for them. That's good for them because they're doing it out of a good heart, or they could be not celebrate holidays for a bad heart, so that they can say, look at all these pitiful flesh people out here and judge everybody else's flesh and say, look at my flesh though. I don't do these things. Whenever their flesh ends in death, the same as all flesh. Okay? Your spirits, they don't die. But your flesh will end in death, every single one of us. But that's hidden from the eyes of God. So he doesn't see sex, he doesn't see drinking, smoking, eating. He doesn't see clothing. He doesn't see any of these things anymore. And this is the grace of God now. But it's also scary because you are not hidden from God. The words that I am saying right now to you could be somehow condescending and that makes me have a bad heart. They could be for gain for me and then I would have a bad heart. or they could be pure, and I'm saying it for good reasons, and I'm telling you the truth about this for a great reason. And that makes me have a good heart. But the same person can say the same words, and they can be doing it for a bad reason. Nothing is hidden from God anymore. He doesn't care if you go out and make money. In this aspect, there's a form of deism that is with God. Since Christ covered the flesh, he doesn't care or work like you think he does. If your conscience thinks that he has to work a certain way in your flesh, he's going to show you how to attain those things, even though it's not important to him. What is important to him is that your heart says, I have to do this thing for God. And then he's going to show you in the spirit and in your spirit how to do these things. Even though it's not important to him, it's important for you not to sin against God with your own conscience. So he'll show you that. Another person is free. They know I can eat all things, and nothing that enters my body is going to hurt me. Where I go is not going to hurt me. Going to some idol, the idol's nothing. Who cares? That's not going to hurt me. It all depends, and you need to make sure that the things that you do, and then there's a little trick to this too. God, nothing is hidden from God, because you need to make sure the things you do are for the good. The problem is, if you're going out of your way because of some words that I said to try and be good now, most likely you weren't good already. But then you can also switch that. See, God sees everything. You can also switch that and go, well, God, look, I'm not good, but I want to be good. And then that could make you good. It just depends. You are not hidden from God. I don't care what you say. You can say you love me and hate me. You can say you hate me and love me. The truth is on the inside, and this flesh is 100% hidden. That's why good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people, good things happen to good people. Because it's hidden, it doesn't matter. But you are bound by your spirit now, and that is all that God sees, regardless of what you do, regardless of if you're praying on your knees until your knees bleed, or slapping yourself and giving yourself stripes because you got turned on or something. All these things, it doesn't matter to God. God sees your heart. And going back, though, going back to all that Christ fulfilled, this is different. God does not show people false doctrine. Okay, that's their own selves that want the false doctrine. That's their worship of spirits that are still lingering around today. Constantine, King James, for example, the two main sources that really brought the Bible to the world, did more for the Bible than anything else. But whenever people are worshiping that Bible, they're actually giving in to those spirits of those men who never went to the light, who are still roaming around, who still have kingdoms in the spirit. The kingdoms of this world are not fleshly kingdoms. Everybody that works in this flesh is governed by some sort of spirit. The real kingdoms of this world and the kingdoms of God and everything is out there in the spirit. Okay, the spirit. Whenever they made the Bible, there were spirits working behind them of dead people that were already there. There were many different spirits, many different things working with them. Whenever somebody in your family dies, their spirit can get on you. They can make you do all sorts of things. They can make you argue. They can make you gain weight. They can make you lustful against someone you shouldn't be lustful against. All these different things. I'm not saying lust of the flesh is anything. It's not. Jesus fulfilled it. But whenever your heart says it's something and then you go against it again, then it's against it. So I hope you understand. I try to give a lot of examples, but do good. If I have to tell you that, most likely you're not good. And if you're not good, you can still maybe just ask for God to make you good. Uh, and that will probably be honorable in God's eyes. But know that the flesh is completely hidden and forgiven. That's why I don't judge people and I don't get into debates. I don't care. I don't say anything to somebody about sex or drinking or smoking or eating or wearing or not wearing or their hair or their makeup or their earrings, or I don't care either way. Nothing, none whatsoever. If they celebrate holidays, if they don't, nothing. Doesn't matter. I know that this is an everlasting kingdom where no spirit is hidden from the eyes of God now. The flesh is no cover for you. You are completely open before the eyes of God at all time, and any lie you say, the smallest little lie, God knows it. So I don't care to get into those things, because I care if you're doing it for a good reason or a bad reason, if you're a liar or not a liar. This is the state of the world today. people seeing the devil, people seeing Christ returning, all these things, the Spirit is not bound by time. You can go back in time in the Spirit. Okay? If you believe, and most people are doing this today, most people are living, even though they're in this time where things are different, their spirits are living in a 40-year period from the time that Christ died until he returned. And because of this, they are seeing all those things that happen. They're putting their spirit back in all those things that happen. And they're seeing these things in the Spirit, thinking they have to do these things in the Spirit, thinking Christ does not return whenever really he's trying to show you that it was all already over. But they're putting themselves back there and causing themselves all kinds of trouble. So today, watch out for your conscience. Don't put anything more on yourself than you have to. But if you think you're going to sin against God by doing some certain thing, don't do it. But I'd rather set you free and say, he's not going to see it at all. Make sure you do good to people. Be good. Don't lie. That's it. Free yourself up. This was supposed to be so freeing. You don't have to go out and do the work of the apostles and everything. But the only work you can do now is D-work. Tell people not to. Say, don't go out there and do that. You don't need to do that. Free them up. It doesn't matter what you eat. Don't let that bother you. You know? It doesn't matter. Don't judge other people for that. Accept salvation as something that you did not do for yourself. And he ended the Jews and he ended the law. That's done. We have the Gentiles under Gentiles forever. Okay? The Jews were over, finished. The time of the Jews done. There will be time no longer. Jews are done. We are Gentiles forever in an everlasting kingdom here on earth, world without end. Amen. As Solomon said, generations come and go, but the earth abides forever. He set up an everlasting kingdom. This is a new heaven and a new earth. You have the powers of the new earth. You can utilize them for good or you can utilize them for evil. Doesn't matter. But you all, every one of you, have the powers of the world to come. And this is why things are so confusing for people. God, why do you let this happen? Because he doesn't see the flesh at all. He doesn't. You're already eternal. You are an eternal being in this flesh that does not matter. So, all right, way too long, probably said too much. Just trying to really get it out there the right way, judge rightly, go by the conscience, not by what people say or do. And free people. Let them know that they're no longer bound by this flesh and what they have to do in the flesh. Free them up, guys. It doesn't matter what you do. You are free if accept Christ, accept what he did. Just accept what he did. Worship God now because God sent Christ. Christ fulfilled the law, shed his blood, made an everlasting covenant where you are not bound or judged by your flesh at all. He doesn't even see it. Okay? Doesn't see it. So be good in the Spirit. Do things for the right reason. Search yourself. Make sure that the things that you do are for the right reason.